The French are known for being pessimistic about life, and yet in one major way, they're very optimistic about the future.
They make a lot of babies. In fact, France is Europe's baby-making champion, and some say it's a model for countries with aging and shrinking populations.
So what's behind this baby exception here in France, and is it sustainable? And what's it like to have a baby in France?
Join us for this episode of French Connections Plus, where we give you the secret of bringing up baby the French way. France is very proud of its fertility rate, which is at just under 2 children per woman.
That's incredibly high compared to other developed nations like Germany or Italy, where the birth rate is in free fall.
That being said, the fertility rate in France has gradually been going down. In fact, it's getting further and further away from the replacement rate at which women have enough babies to sustain the population.
It's a touchy subject in any country, as people tend to associate fertility with how dynamic a society really is. But it does certainly beg the question, is the French baby exception coming to an end?
Well, trends certainly are changing. Women are not only having fewer babies, they're having them later in life, typically after the age of 30. And in fact, 5% of babies are born to women over the age of 40.
French women seem to want to have a life and a career before starting a family. But some also associate France's current baby blues with cuts in government aid.
That's right, because if fertility has traditionally been very high in France, it's not because the French have special baby-making powers. It's because there's a generous welfare system in place that encourages people to have kids.
To boost the birth rate, the French state has a family allowance system backed by tax incentives. It's a policy that's been in place since the 1930s and is open to all legal residents, French or not. Couples and single parents can expect a wide range of financial aid, depending on their income and how many children they have. The more kids you have, the more you get. On the birth of your first child, you can receive an allowance to help you get started and provide for the child until he or she turns 3. From 2 kids up, you automatically start receiving monthly benefits known as les allocations familiales. Here again, the system is income dependent. High-income families get less, but all families get something. Families with 3 kids or more achieve the golden status of a famille nombreuse, a big family that gives you more perks like discounts on transportation. On top of all this, families get tax credits for daycare and schooling expenses. It's a generous system that costs the state tens of billions of euros each year, a high cost that's worth it, if you ask French parents.
It's not just the tax breaks and the cash handouts. France's baby boom secret is actually getting women back to work after maternity leave.
Now that's something a lot of you wrote in about, like Jen, who asks, what's the longest amount of time that a woman can get on maternity leave?
Well, parental leave in France is pretty good compared to, say, the United States, but it's actually lower than in other EU countries. Maternity leave, for instance, is 16 weeks, paid for by the public healthcare system, la sécurité sociale. And paternity leave is 11 consecutive calendar days.
Instead of giving women longer maternity leave, the French state helps women better manage work and motherhood.
And it might seem counterintuitive, but studies show that the more active women are in the workforce, the more they have babies. And more babies means more future workers and future taxpayers who will fund the welfare state.
Now, there are a lot of different options for childcare here in France, but the most popular among them is la crèche.
La crèche is a state-subsidized daycare for babies and toddlers up to the age of 3 when they have to go to school. The problem is there aren't that many spots in these crèches.
And the joke goes, you have to sign up for crèche almost before you get pregnant. But once you get a spot, the quality of childcare is incredible and very French.
La crèche is considered the holy grail of daycare options in France. It's not just the low cost and flexible hours. Parents say one thing they appreciate is the food. To find out more, I'm at a city-run crèche in the 13th arrondissement of Paris.
And we're just in time for lunch. So let's see what's on the menu. It's a 4-course meal. Kids will start off with some grapefruit here, followed by veal with prunes and mushrooms, organic, and spinach and rice, also organic. Then they'll have some cheese because this is France after all. And for dessert, an organic banana.
Meals at this creche are cooked on the spot from scratch, often using organic ingredients. Every day, kids sit down to healthy feasts that challenge their taste buds.
Vous voyez, là, c'est quand même une entrée acide.
Oui.
Ben, en gros, il y a la moitié qui aime et la moitié qui n'aime pas. En fait, on dit toujours qu'un enfant, il a besoin de goûter 10 fois pour apprécier. Ils savent qu'ils peuvent le laisser sur le plateau.
Pas d'obligation.
Pas d'obligation.
Today's spinach and rice dish is a big hit. So what's the secret to getting French kids to eat everything? You start them young.
Nous, les Français, c'est vrai qu'on est habitués à leur proposer grands, multiples choix au niveau des légumes. Et je pense que du coup, leurs papilles sont habitués dès tout petit à goûter divers légumes. Je pense que c'est ça qui fait que plus tard, ils sont aptes à manger de tout, en fait.
It's snack time at this parent-run creche just outside of Paris. Here, too, a nutritionist helps put together a varied menu, delicious dishes that follow the seasons.
On ne mange pas toujours aussi bien chez soi. On mange très très bien à la crèche, il y a une cuisinière sur place. On découvre, grâce à elle en tout cas, des saveurs. Moi, je refais la même chose chez moi après, du coup, pour mes fils. C'est vraiment un lieu de transmission, quoi. Voilà.
Here in France, 8 out of 10 women go back to work after childbirth. Now, that's due, of course, to economic necessity, but it's also due to French culture.
Well, there's a strong idea in France that before being a mother, you're a woman. And therefore, there's a lot of pressure for working mothers to go back to their normal life ASAP.
That's true for non-working mothers as well. Take breastfeeding, for example. While it might be the norm for many moms around the world, here in France, breast isn't best.
France has one of the lowest breastfeeding rates in the Western world, 60%, and women tend to stop after 4 months. That's 2 months less than what's recommended by the World Health Organization.
I remember when I had my baby, I had to fight with the nurses to keep him in the room with me so I could breastfeed, instead of having them snatch him away to give him formula so I could rest. On the plus side, French health insurance did pay for a new breast pump when I went back to work.
French reticence to breastfeeding stretches back centuries. In the 1600s, wealthy women hired wet nurses to breastfeed their children. And then in the 1960s, feminists likened it to slavery. In fact, today it's still common to hear people say that your breasts are for your partner, not your baby.
And that's just one of the many cultural differences you'll find as an expat if you decide to have a baby à la française.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having me.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, welcome to the Comedy Club.
So to find out more about what it's like to raise French children, I am joined by American stand-up comic Sarah Donnelly, who has first-hand experience in the matter. You actually wrote a show about it. It's called Becoming Maman.
Yes.
At what point did you realize that you had become maman and not mommy?
Well, I think it became very clear in the middle of the night when my daughter cried out, "Maman!" I was like, wow, my daughter's langue maternelle, mother tongue, is not actually her mother's tongue. And then I was like, okay, it's real. That's what became real for me.
The parenting adventure starts at birth.
Yes.
What is the most surprising thing about having a baby in France?
Well, I loved my stay at the maternity. I thought it was great. First of all, to be American, to stay in the hospital for 7 days and not be bankrupt at the end is like incredible. I loved the food. I didn't want to leave. I was like, what? You have to send me home now with this baby?
So in your show, you say that there's a right time and a wrong time to have a baby in France. Which is which?
Well, in Paris, timing is everything in this town. Okay, so don't have your baby in August. Everyone's on vacation. If you don't know, France is on vacation in August, so you'll be having the baby alone in the maternity. And you'll have a very sad summer holiday when all your friends are gone and you've had this new baby and you're like, is anyone gonna come visit me here? The best time to have a baby in Paris is in June. Why is that? Because you need the baby to be 3 months old in September, and what's in September? The rentrée, and what do you need at the rentrée? You need a spot in the creche. You gotta get the baby in the creche, you gotta be very on time.
So there's so many bestsellers out there saying that French kids are the best, they eat everything, they don't throw tantrums. Now, would you say this is a cliche, or is there a certain Gallic talent for raising children?
I think this is a cliche. I think the key is French parents are not better at parenting, they're better at lying. They're better at making it seem like they have it all together. You see a Parisian mom drop her daughter off at the creche, she looks very chic and put together. Underneath, who knows what's going on, but she looks good on the outside. So I think French parents are nailing looking like they have everything calm, cool, and collected.
And what about French kids, though? It seems like they kind of eat everything. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't think French kids eat everything. I think they have great table manners, and because this is France, food, very important. The repas, it's like a prayer, it's like a whole religious experience. You've got to do it right.
And how about you? What is your most maman characteristic?
One thing that's really great about living in France is you have affordable childcare. I'm a comedian. I'm able to put my child in childcare so I can work. I can be a bit more relaxed. You know, I can drop her off. I can go get a coffee and do the things I need to do. And I think in that way, I'm more French. It's very important to keep yourself and not be lost in the mothering. So come on to France if you can.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. We're going to have to leave it there. And do check out her show. It's called Becoming Maman.
While French child rearing has been applauded around the world, there is one practice here that has been shunned elsewhere. That's la fessée, spanking.
It might come as a surprise, but according to a recent report, 85% of French mothers and fathers spank their children. Now, it seems like a lot of parents still believe that they should be able to do whatever they want with their children.
Now, last year, French lawmakers overwhelmingly voted to ban corporal punishment and public humiliation.
But the law carries no punishment for breaking it, and so critics say it won't change behavior.
All right, Flo, we can't wrap up a show about babies here in France without talking about the definitive piece of French baby culture, Sophie la giraffe.
Sophie is a popular teething toy for infants, and she's been made in France since 1961. So many French children have lovingly chewed on her. She's kind of the must when it comes to baby gifts, but not that original. I've definitely been to a baby shower where there were several Sophie gifts. It was awkward.
We'll leave you with that. Thanks for watching French Connections Plus. Don't forget, if you have any questions for us, you can tweet at Flo Villemaneau or leave us a message on our Facebook page.
And we'll see you next time for French Connections Plus.